This is my model of covering your bases with IT questions. Not getting into all of the questions, but I'm just trying to present the background of where this model has come from. It's mine, so you can like it or hate it. Either way, I don't. It's okay. I welcome your feedback on it. Um, it's something I've presented for a couple of semesters now, and in general, people accept it fairly well. I think there's always room for improvement. So let me just run over a brief, very, very brief background of where this has come from. I call it covering your bases because there's four aspects to it, and I at the end present it as if it's something like a baseball diamond, and you've got four bases to cover, and we move around from first, second, third to home. I don't call them that, but it's just the picture. There was a book that was written in about 1938 by a man named Chester Barnard. The book was called The Functions of the Executive, and it's been a landmark piece in executive leadership literature. If you do a Google Scholar search, you'll see that this book is cited 10,224 times, and that was as of yesterday on January 12th, 2012, actually January 11th. So it's a very popular piece. As you can see, it's been reprinted 18 times. What Chester talks about in this book is he defines organizational effectiveness and efficiency. Now, since he gave this definition, scholars have argued over effectiveness and efficiency a lot. I'm not really wanting to get into the argument of what's effectiveness and efficiency, but what he pointed at is something that's very important in my opinion. He gives an example early in the book to define effectiveness and efficiency, and I want to share that with you now. Imagine, if you will, a group of people traveling on a path. That group of people is an organization. The organization has a goal of traveling down that path to get from point A to point B. While they're traveling on the path, they come to a rock in the path. Now, this is a bad picture because in the illustration, you're not able to pass on either side. The only option is for the people to agree on how to move the rock. So now the organization is faced with a challenge in its goal of reaching from point A to point B. So they have to determine how they're going to get past the rock. Well, you go through all of the group development models, all of the storming, the forming, the norming, and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, leadership emerges, decisions are made, the rock is moved, the group progresses. So you would think that everyone would be happy because they have achieved organizational effectiveness. Effective in that there was a process that needed to be completed, and the process was achieved. Now they're back on their way to achieving their goal, and you have smiling faces all around. Not necessarily. This is where things get a little interesting, because you've achieved the process, but that doesn't mean that all the people are happy with how the process was completed. The big question comes up when you come to the next rock in the road. Your organization continues down the path, trying to go from point A to point B, and you come to another challenge. Depending on how the leadership was determined, depending on how the decisions were made, you may or may not still have cooperation. If you do have cooperation, then you still have organizational efficiency. Okay, if you don't, then you have failed to maintain the efficiency of the organization, which is the ability to continue to cooperate to meet the organizational goals. And so what you see in his definitions is that effectiveness deals with processes and efficiency deals with people. Okay, so I'm going to get away from the effectiveness and efficiency. I may mention it again later, but I want to call it process and people, because these are two things that you always have in any organization. You've got the process, which is what's got to be done, and then you've got the people that actually carry out the task. There has been more research done. In 1983, there was a research article. This is part of a series that these two authors did, published in Management Science, called A Spatial Model of Effectiveness, Criteria Towards Competing values to organizational analysis. Basically, they looked at the literature and said, okay, everybody's arguing over what effectiveness is. Let's see if we can define a model of ways to measure effectiveness. This also is a highly cited piece, not cited over 10,000 times, but 1,400 citations is very significant considering that this has only been published since 83 and the other book's been out since 38. Okay, so to achieve 1,400 citations in about 30 years is pretty significant. Here's their model. Their model basically breaks effectiveness and efficiency down into 4 separate models. Upper left-hand quadrant, you have what's called the human relations model. The means of achieving this model is cohesion and morale. This is one of the companies where everybody loves to work there, even if they're losing money. A lot of flexibility in what they're able to do. They're very internally focused on their people, on their human resources, and so everyone loves going to work, even though the company may go under. Upper right-hand corner, you've got an open systems model. Still a good place to work. Very externally focused on what the organization can accomplish, but not as focused on the people who accomplish it. So the organization might be very successful, but they might have a high turnover. Very focused on growth of the organization and acquiring resources. The bottom right-hand corner measures effectiveness in a rational goal model. You set goals, you plan, you focus on productivity and efficiency. Not necessarily focusing on flexibility, focusing on control. And so what you do is you set very established goals, you achieve those goals. You may fire 100 people in the process. People may hate working there, but you're going to meet your goals, and when you make an agreement with another organization, B2B agreement, you're going to meet that agreement. Internal process model, again, you have a lot of communication, have a lot of stability and control. Again, you're trying to meet those goals, trying to be very effective and efficient, and you do so with communication, information management within the organization. So you try to enhance your effectiveness by making sure the way you do everything internally is the best possible way to do it. So I present this to you not because this is part of my model, but to show that there's different ways to look at effectiveness and efficiency. But if you notice, the thing that all of these have in common is that there's something to do with processes and there's something to do with people. In the human relations model, you focus very much on the people, and you basically think if you've got good people, then you'll have effective processes. In the other extreme, the rational goal model, you focus all on the processes and not on the people. But in all of these, even in the later literature, we're still saying the two important things are people and processes. Now, today, we have no vertical or standalone companies where you can look at your own people and your own processes by themselves. Those days are gone. You remember the Henry Ford assembly line days and the Henry Ford vertical structure days where you even own your own rubber trees so that you can produce tires. Those days are over with. Today, things are outsourced. IT leads in general as the most active area of outsourcing. We outsource our human resources, our marketing, sales, administrative duties, finance, many other things. This may or may not be accurate, but I think it gives you an idea of the fact that today, even the general processes that go on within an organization are not all owned by that organization. So to only look at people and processes within your organization is not going to work. And this is not going to go away. Outsourcing is not going to go away because it reduces costs, frees up internal resources, improves business or customer focus. There's lots of reasons why we outsource so much today. So what we have effectively is you have an organization that is not by itself, but it is very much connected all along the supply chain to multiple partners through multiple agreements. And there's no way that today you can focus only on your own internal people and processes. because those processes are impacted by all the processes and people all along the supply chain. So today we do weave a very tangled web. We need to focus on both internal and external people and processes. And this brings us to my model of covering your bases. You have internal process issues that we'll consider first. Internal process issues, things like workflow, business process management, information security within your organization. So this is really the model of what was looked at before. You've got different ways to look at your internal operations. For the process part, these are three things that you would consider. It's not all that you would consider, but this would be a good starting point. You also have your internal people issues, such as if we update this system, how much training will we have to do for our employees? What kind of skill sets do they need? Change management within the organization, other HR issues. If we update this system or this process, are we going to be getting rid of employees? So there's lots of internal people issues to deal with. External process issues such as partner systems, extranet, security along the supply chain. What information do we need to share, and is everybody capturing their data and information in the right format? One of you in your course postings told me that there was over 200 different systems used to track information in an organization, and all of the systems did not play well together. So you've got external processes with partners, people across the supply chain who are gathering information. In fact, that may have been an internal process, so I may have put that example at the wrong time. But nonetheless, it would be more common to find different systems across the supply chain. What kind of legal processes do we need to consider? And then, of course, external people issues, which would be your customers. How are decisions going to impact customers? Different government agencies that might give you regulations that you've got to deal with, special interest groups, the local population. You make decisions, and sometimes they impact the local population, the industry in general, and of course your competition. So this model gives us four things to look at, and those four things are, it's real easy to remember. You've got people and processes, both inside and outside. Internal people, internal processes, external people, and external processes that you need to consider. And this is my covering your bases model. So what present this to you is not just applied to IT, but as we're going through the semester, I want you to look at these four areas and let them guide the questions that you ask when you're looking at a scenario, to see if the right questions are being asked. You can cover your bases, I believe, by considering these four areas and the impact that decisions will make on each of these.